welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown, the unofficial sumo podcast for official sumo fans. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
And this is our Kyushu Banzuke recap. Quick notice for any of our YouTube watchers, do apologize for not getting our Banzuke prediction up on YouTube. It was available in the audio podcast version, but we were little busy and our schedules weren't able to get the video version done. But as you're listening to this, if you would like to go back and watch the prediction, that is now available on YouTube for you to watch. So apologize for that. We'll try to do a little bit better in the future on making sure we get that out in a timely fashion, but schedules, real life kind of happens. Yeah.
I blame our patrons because they don't pay enough for this to be a full-time job for us. So really, whose fault is it?
I love each and every one of our patrons and everything that they have unnecessarily provided to us in helping support this show. So thank you, patrons. You are the greatest. Change nothing.
My love language is sarcasm. So
yeah. But yeah, anything we can do to distract from talk. It's probably better people didn't see my prediction for this Banzuke because you know what? Not the greatest of results for me in this one. That's kind of what I was expecting. I went back and listened to my prediction. I did do a lot of hemming and hawing, and that was for a good reason because I had no idea what was coming.
God, no.
There were plenty of other people that did. It wasn't me this time.
Yeah, but, you were not alone.
But the good news is it wasn't so bad that I am no longer number one in Guess the Banzuke standing. So despite a poor performance, I am still number one overall for Guess the Banzuke, which honestly, that's the most important metric, honestly.
I can't think of any other metric that has a trophy to it.
Exactly. So let's dive into the prediction. If you are watching on YouTube, and hopefully this video makes it up to YouTube in a timely manner itself.
Kind of rub that one in again.
Yeah.
I did one of the cardinal sins of podcasting, and I left my dog outside when we started recording. So I will be right back. But you go ahead and start, Ryan, because the beginning is a little boring.
That's right. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just a quick explanation of the graphics that you're going to see. On the right, you can see my prediction for what I thought the Kyushu Banzuke was going to look like. Any green or red that you see on there represents Rikishi with winning records and losing records if they are in red. And as Jake will be revealing as we go throughout the prediction where the Rikishi actually ended up. And if they have a white background, it means I had an exact perfect prediction on them. Exactly where I thought they were going to go. If they have a green background, it means that they ended up a little higher than I thought they were going to go. And if they have a red background, it means they ended up a little lower than I thought they were going to go. The darker the shade of green or red indicates a more severe miss on my part. So let's dive right into it with the Yokozuna East. That is, of course, Teru no Fuji. He sat out the last Basho. Probably going to sit out this Basho too from everything I've been seeing. But Yokozuna going to be Yokozuna. That's all they got to do. And obviously nobody is promoted up to Yokozuna. So the Yokozuna West slot will be blank. We do have the same two Ozeki at Ozeki 1 we had last Basho as Kotozakura on the east side and Hoshoryu on the west side. Both of them had 8 and 7 records. This is the order they were in last time. No reason to shuffle those two around at all. But as we all know, joining them at Ozeki 2 on the west side to balance out the east side Yokozuna, we have Ono Sato making his way up into the Ozeki rank in his 6th career Makuuchi Basho.
Yeah.
Cannot emphasize that enough. This guy will be completing his first year at the rank of Ozeki.
Yeah, unbelievable. I can't remember exactly when he said it, but I think it was John Gunning said he would be Ozeki by the end of the year, and I was skeptical because I am a non-believer. But
because he was at Juryo at the time that he said it.
Yeah, well, details.
Yeah. So yeah, Ono Sato, we're going to see if he is going to have any sort of kind of hangover from the Ozeki promotion, hangover from Yusho celebration. We saw last time he won a Yusho, came back at his worst record in the top division with a 9-6. But still,
terrible.
His worst performance following a Yusho. So we'll see if we have a similar hangover for Ono Sato with all of his extra partying that he had between these bashos. We move down to the Sekiwake rank, where it's going to be shrinking as we thought, down from 4 Rikishi to 2 Rikishi. On the east side, we're going to have Kirishima. He is, I believe, he was Sekiwake West last Basho, I think, and I think he's just sliding over to Sekiwake East. He was Sekiwake 2 East, moving up to just regular Sekiwake East this Basho.
Right.
And then Daisho rising 1 rank from Komosubi up to Sekiwake after he had an 8-7 record. As we went over on the preview, there's a lot of Rikishi contending for that second Sekiwake rank, but the easiest thing to do, there's an open Sekiwake rank. You got a Komosubi East with a winning record. Plug that guy in.
Job's done.
Easy enough. And we get to Komosubi East, where we have Wakamoto Haru rising 3 ranks from Maegashira 3 after an 11-4 record. Every time I see that, I completely forget that Wakamoto Haru had an 11-4 record.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how things get lost when there's big narratives. Like Ono Sato is obviously the headline going on right now, right? So like basically all the other like smaller narratives have kind of faded into the background for me. I'm excited for our preview when I can relearn what else happened in the last Basho.
It's weird because we'll get to it in a moment, but Nishikigi also had an 11-4 record, and I'm like, yeah, I remember that. But every time I see Wakamoto Haru in an 11-4, I don't know why that always catches me off guard there. So those first 7 spots are kind of where my confidence ended on the preview, and damn it was for a good reason. Because we got to Komosubi West, we had 3 Rikishi who were vying for that spot. It was either going to be Oho, Shodai, or Wakataka Kage. In my final draft, I ended up going with Oho, but looks like I should have stuck with my first 2 drafts on this one, because rising from Maegashira 4 to Komosubi West after 10-5 record, it is Shodai returning back into the Sanyaku ranks. How long has it been since Shodai was in the Sanyaku last?
14 years. Unbelievable.
More
Inspiring.
like May of last year.
Yeah, okay. I was close.
Yeah, you're close. Where he went 6-9 last time, and honestly, I expect something similar this time as well. But Shodai back into the Sanyaku ranks. I had him in my final prediction landing at Maegashira 2, so missed him by 2 ranks there.
That was one of those where there was a big enough pileup where unless you got it perfect, you were going to miss these guys by a decent margin, you know? So Shodai, yeah, he was one of the options for Komosubi, but ending up all the way down at Maegashira 2 is just a big enough logjam, and the tiebreakers worked out how they did that. Yeah, it seems like a bigger loss, but yes, I definitely remember this being the first pileup where you're like, it could be any of these guys, but I have to pick one.
Yeah, it literally could have gone in any order of Wakataka Kage, Oho, Shodai. All of them had their reasons for deserving to go ahead of the other one. But we'll move down to Maegashira 1 on the east side, where we have Oho landing there at his career high rank of Maegashira 1, rising up 1 rank from Maegashira 2 after a 9-6 record. I had assumed that him being the highest ranked of these Rikishi vying for that open Komosubi slot, that was going to kind of slot him in there. But obviously, Shodai got that advantage. Shodai had the win advantage over Oho and the east-west advantage. I wasn't sure if Maegashira 4 was going to be treated as the Joy, even if they are mathematically a part of the Joy. Looks like it was. So maybe Maegashira 4 is a part of the Joy, or is just flip of the coin. You know how it always is.
Yeah. To go back to, we've already brought him up once, but John Gunning always says that the people in the West are fretting more about predicting their Banzuke than the people actually making it.
Yeah.
So they see a logjam like that one, they're probably like, okay, I guess we'll put Shodai there.
Yep. And then Maegashira 1 on the west side. I did get this one correct. It is Hira do Umi, dropping only 1 rank from Komosubi after his 7-8 record. As I talked about on the preview, Wakataka Kage deserves to be like 3 ranks higher than Hida Umi, but here Hida Umi is going ahead of Wakataka Kage, and that is because when a Rikshi is dropping out of the Sanyaku ranks, the Banzuke committee does not want to over demote those Rikshi, and with a 7-8 record, you'd only expect a 1 rank demotion, and that's exactly what Hida Umi got at the expense of somebody like Wakataka Kage, who was very well outside of the Joy. No conversation about that like there could be with Shodai.
Mhm.
So Hida Umi getting a little bit of an advantage here, and I'm making him a luck of the Banzuke candidate because of that, just because it's what I completely expected, but he's still going ahead of a guy that like mathematically deserves to be 3-4 ranks higher than him.
Is that similar to on your prediction? Did you think that Shodai deserved to be ahead of Hiradomi, but again, you didn't want to overdemote him?
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. And then at Maegashira 2 East, I do have not I do have, we have Wakataka Kage. The Banzuke committee has Wakataka Kage landing there. And I am going to make him a snub of the Banzuke. It's a 5 rank rise from Maegashira 7 to Maegashira 2 East after a 12-3 record. The expected promotion after 12-3 is about 9 ranks. He's only getting 5 here, but he is running into a logjam at the Sanyaku, so it makes sense. But the reason I'm making him a snub of the Banzuke candidate, he is behind Oho, who mathematically he deserved to be ahead of. Same with Shodai, same with Hida Umi. So there's just like 3 guys he deserves to be mathematically ahead of that because of his placement on the Banzuke at Maegashira 7, he's kind of being held back from that. So a little bit of a snub in my mind. I did mention in the preview when we were going over this area of the Banzuke that there were 2 spots I was supremely confident in, and one of them was Maegashira 2 West, and I'm very happy that I nailed it with Ura rising 3 ranks to Maegashira 5, or from Maegashira 5 to Maegashira 2 West after a 9-6 record. We'll move on. Maegashira 3, another thing that I missed here. We have Abi landing at Maegashira 3 East, dropping 4 ranks from Sekiwake after his 5-10 record. And at Maegashira 3 West, we have Atami Fuji dropping 1 rank from Maegashira 2 to Maegashira 3 West after a 7-8 record. And
Hey,
then,
real quick, I can't deal with this. I gotta justify this so that these are the same.
oh, did I
Just
misalign those?
sloppy spreadsheeting here. If you're gonna have the Banzuke center aligned there so they line up along the center column, I got to do the other one.
You know,
I
it's
just
probably
noticed
been
it
like
and it
that
was
in
going to
all
kill
of
me.
our past videos.
Probably, but not anymore. Not anymore, so help me.
Thank you for writing that egregious wrong, and I'm shocked I've never noticed that.
I'm kind of shocked that we got like a third of the way through this and I'm like, "Hey, wait a second. How come those don't line up the same?" Apologies to anyone watching this with OCD that's been screaming at it the whole time on YouTube.
Hey, they should have left a comment on YouTube. They never did.
Yeah, there you go. It's
All
our
right.
patrons' fault again.
And then I want to reveal Maegashira 4 East. Then I want to kind of talk about the last 3 guys. So Maegashira 4 East is Chura no Umi, rising 3 ranks from Maegashira 7 to Maegashira 4 East after a 10-5 record. So in my prediction, I had Chura no Umi, then Atami Fuji, then Abi. In my prediction, I had talked about that Joy bias and Sanyaku bias hasn't really been as much of a thing. It kind of in the previous Banzuke, we did see the return of Joy bias where a Rikshi in like Maegashira 1 through 3 ended up ahead of somebody further down the Banzuke. They ended up ahead of them despite mathematically deserving to be lower than them. That is something we had not been seeing over the past year or so. And so I've kind of established that in my mind as the new rule moving forward. And I always like to kind of lag behind in my predictions a little bit. I like to see 2 Basho trend at the very least before I'm going to base my predictions off of something. And we are getting that 2 Basho trend with this Banzuke. Joy bias is very much back alive and on its feet, and it's rearing its head all across the mid Banzuke section, and it's going to be causing me quite a few misses. It's all things that I don't want to be that guy that's like, I could have gotten this right, but I just weird things happened. I didn't, but I could have. This is all things that I
But that
considered.
is the case here.
It is. No, it's all things that I considered, but I forced myself to ignore them just because I was treating the last Banzuke as a blip with like Meisei and
Yeah.
Gonoyama going ahead of Wakataka Kage and Chura no Umi. And so here we have Abi, who, based on the math of where they deserve to be ranked, Chura no Umi deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of Abi, dropping out of Sanyaku. So I put Chura no Umi ahead of him. And Atami Fuji deserved to be 1 rank ahead of Abi. And I considered putting Abi ahead of Atami Fuji, but then if I put both of those guys ahead of Atami Fuji would have gotten a 1 rank over demotion, and wasn't sure if like Abi's Sanyaku bias would completely overrule Atami Fuji's like joy bias.
Mhm.
Turns out it does. So Abi going ahead of both Chura no Umi and Atami Fuji here, despite deserving to be ranked lower than both of them, and in Chura no Umi's case, deserving to be ranked 2 ranks lower than him. So because of that, I've got Chura no Umi as a snub of the Banzuke candidate here.
Makes
And then
sense.
at Mike, and that wraps up our logjam at the beginning, where we just had too many people to fit in, not enough spaces. And as you can see, the east side royally messed that up. West side somehow did okay. But now we're gonna get to the part of the Banzuke where joy bias is really going to be costing me a lot of points. Doesn't quite start at Maegashira 4 West. This was the second rank in the top 4 Maegashira ranks where I'm like, I know exactly who's going there. And I was right. And that's Oshoma, rising 5 ranks from Maegashira 9 to Maegashira 4 West after a 10-5 record. And it's kind of also another reason that Chura no Umi is getting a snub of the Banzuke for me is their placement side by side. It's just a quirk of the Banzuke, but Chura no Umi had a 10-5 record. Oshoma had a 10-5 record. Chura no Umi rose 3 ranks. Oshoma, ending up right next to him, rose 5 ranks to get there. It makes complete sense once you dig into it and like why
Yeah.
it happened, but just on the surface, it's just like, well,
It's
that's
just
not fair.
rude. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get to Maegashira 5, where on the east side, we're going to have Tobizaru dropping 4 ranks from Maegashira 1 to Maegashira 5 East after a 5-10 record. And we have Koto Shoho dropping 1 rank from Maegashira 4 to Maegashira 5 West after a 7-8 record. So my prediction, I had these two flipped. Tobizaru deserved to be 1 rank behind Koto Shoho. I was ignoring joy bias. The Banzuke committee did not. They put Tobizaru ahead of Koto Shoho here.
Just another little tiebreaker that didn't go your way.
Yep.
Lot more color on this one than there is normally.
Just wait. We're going to be painting that thing over these
boy.
next few ranks.
It's going to get real weird for those of you that are red-green colorblind.
Oh, I never thought about that. I should change the colors.
Literally just occurred to me right now. Maybe we should do something different.
100% changing the colors. I never even considered that, and I apologize to anybody watching who may be colorblind. We are changing that to like red and blue immediately in the next episode.
Fuchsia polka dots and neon green stripes.
It's the only way to be sure, Jake.
It's the only way to be sure.
We got to do it.
Anyways,
yes.
How about we deal with that next Banzuke?
Yes, absolutely. not right now. Absolutely.
Everybody sit tight. Everybody sit tight. We're going to need about 10 minutes. We're just going to keep it recording because that's easy. And then we'll just, no, I'm kidding. Let's go on.
At Maegashira 6 on the east side, we have Takanosho dropping 5 ranks from Maegashira 1 after a 4-11 record. And at Maegashira 6 West, we have Nishikigi rising 7 ranks from Maegashira 13 to Maegashira 6 West after a 4-11 record. And then we also have Endo at Maegashira 7 East rising 1 rank from Maegashira 8 after an 8-7 record. So here is another case of the joy bias kind of rearing its ugly head. You had Nishikigi, who deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of Takanosho, and you had Endo, who deserved to be 1 rank ahead of Takanosho. Both of those guys ending up behind Takanosho, who was at Maegashira 1. He was firmly within the joy, and we can see he's getting that joy bias this Basho, going ahead of Rikshi that he deserved to be 2 ranks behind. And that's kind of the behavior that we saw, like, 2, 3, 4 years ago when Isegahama was the head of the Banzuke committee. I'm fairly positive there's like, as of the last Banzuke, there's like new people on the committee, and I think we're seeing that impact immediately with the treatment of the Joy Rikishi.
Yeah, that's interesting how the priorities shift, but it makes sense that guys that were ranked higher continue, like, get a little bit of a bonus for that.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've never really questioned that joy bias makes sense and is like a thing worth considering, but it's definitely frustrating for it to disappear unannounced and then reappear unannounced. So,
Yeah. I
oh
guess
well.
they announced it with the new members of the Banzuke
Okay.
committee. That
That
was
was
the
the
announcement,
announcement.
I
Yeah.
guess. I that is something that I now know I need to pay a lot closer attention to,
They
and
have
who is
like
making these things.
they have like websites that'll like rate the like the political alignment of people that are like getting appointed to judgeships or stuff like that. We should institute something similar where like when somebody's getting added to the Banzuke committee, we need to have somebody tell us like how far on the spectrum of joy bias to no joy bias are they?
Yeah,
Like
how much do they like Juryo Rikshi? How much do they hate Juryo Rikshi?
exactly.
We
This
need
is
these stats for all of the members of the JSA. This is the important
investigative
stuff.
journalism is dying if we cannot get these stats when people get promoted to the Banzuke committee.
Yeah. We need to extend that to like the Shimpan as well. Like how
Dead body
likely
rule?
yeah, how likely are they to rule something dead body rule? How likely are they to raise their hand at all? Like I think we need, and like the Gyoji, obviously we need these for the Gyoji, but I
Hmm.
think just having these stats available is what the entrenched sumo nerds like us are dying for.
Yep, we need to really moneyball this whole situation with with impossible to achieve statistics.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Maegashira 7 West, we are going to have Mitake Yumi dropping 4 ranks from Maegashira 3 following a 4-11 record. And I am going to make him another Luck of the Banzuke
Yikes!
candidate.
Yeah.
His
He-
placement here is it makes sense. It's another result of Joy bias. He's falling for Maegashira 3. And the reason I'm making him like a Luck of the Banzuke candidate as opposed to like Takanosho or Tobizaru is because Mitake Yumi's going ahead of 3 other Rikishi
oh,
that he
jeez.
deserved to be rank behind, as opposed to the others going ahead of like 1 or 2.
And he
So I
was
think
already
Mitake,
kind of getting under demoted.
yeah, absolutely. If he went behind all the Rikishi he deserved to go behind, he would have ended up at Maegashira 9, which would have been a 1 rank under demotion. I in my prediction I had him at Maegashira 8, so a 2 rank under demotion. But yeah, so Mitake Yumi deserved to be behind Roga, Gonoyama, and Midori Fuji. He ended up ahead of all 3 of those, and so his joy bias impacted him the most out of everybody receiving it. So in my mind, that makes him the Luck of the Banzuke candidate. Nobody else can really compete with how much he's benefiting
Yeah.
from that jump. And then we get those next 3 guys in line for the next 3 spots. So at Maegashira 8 on the east side, Roga rising up 2 ranks from Maegashira 10 after an 8-7 record. This is going to be a career high ranking for Roga here at Maegashira 8 after kind of being stuck at Maegashira 15 for the first half of this year, literally at Maegashira 15
Yeah, 3 in
for
a row,
3
right?
consecutive bashos. He's strung together a couple of winning records, and he's jumped up to Maegashira 8. I forgot to mention as well Oshoma and Choda no Umi, both at their career high rankings, both of them at Maegashira 4. So it could be a real eye-opening experience for Choda no Umi and Oshoma this basho. But I think we've all learned at this point, don't count out Choda no Umi.
Hmm.
Never count out Choda no Umi. And we'll see what Oshoma can give us here at his career high rank of Maegashira 4. But just want to make sure I highlighted those. I had forgotten them.
Yeah, totally.
Maegashira 8 on the west side, we have Gonoyama dropping 2 ranks from Maegashira 6 after a 6-9 record. And then at Maegashira 9 on the east side, we have Midori Fuji dropping 1 rank from Maegashira 8 after a 7-8 record. So now that we have placed Mitake Yumi on the Banzuke, we are past all of that silly joy bias stuff. And this is like I mentioned on the preview. We're before all of the silly Juryo stuff is going to come into play. This is just a nice beautiful space of pure number Banzuke prediction. And as I would really hope I would nail those exactly, that's exactly what happened. So we're gonna
Good,
go
good.
through a nice long string of perfect predictions where I at least got the simple stuff on this one. I didn't go as
Yeah.
far as to screw up the simple stuff. So I'm happy with that at least. But my God, I don't know that I have seen a prediction with this many misses for me in quite a while.
Yeah, the way you were building that up, it was either going to be like, "Oh, and here's the simple part," and either I nailed it or I absolutely crapped the bed. There was
No.
no in between on how you were building that one up.
At least on this Banzuke, the Banzuke committee didn't do anything weird or out of the ordinary. They just followed the simple tiebreaker rules, and it's just a nice, peaceful walk in the park till we get to about Maegashira 14, 15-ish.
Beautiful.
So at Maegashira 9 on the west side, we have Takayasu rising 6 ranks from Maegashira 15 to Maegashira 9 after a 10-5 record. I think he's the first Rikishi on this Banzuke to be over promoted,
I think
if
so.
I'm doing my math correctly, because you would expect a 5 rank promotion, but he ended up with a 6 rank promotion. So obviously, no more logjam trying to fill up holes at this point with Takayasu. Um, at Maegashira 10 on the east side, Ichi Yamamoto drops 1 rank from Maegashira 9 after a 7-8 record. And on the west side, Takada Fuji rises 5 ranks from Maegashira 15 after a 10-5 record. At Maegashira 11 on the east side, we have Tamawashi dropping 1 rank from Maegashira 10 after a 7-8 record. And then we have Meisei dropping 5 ranks from Maegashira 6 after a 5-10 record. We'll keep the train moving to Maegashira 12, where on the east side we have Hokuto Fuji rising 1 rank from Maegashira 13 after an 8-7 record. And on the west side, we have Sada no Umi dropping 1 rank from Maegashira 11 after a 7-8 record. And then at Maegashira 13, we have Ryuden rising 1 rank from Maegashira 14 after an 8-7 record. And we have Shonan no Umi dropping 8 ranks from Maegashira 5 after a 3-12 record. So, Jake, we just blasted through about 4.5 ranks right there. Any questions or comments or about anything in this range?
Nope, I love it. We went over it on the preview of just like which tiebreakers applied, but yeah, it's nice to have. I don't know. I think of work this way too. I need like some challenges at work to like make sure that it's interesting, but every now and then I need some easy victories.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
after the pummeling that you took in the mid Maegashira, you needed a break. So a couple 5 straight ranks of perfect knockouts, beautiful.
Yeah, it's I'm the same way at work. Like I'm working on like a big difficult project and then like some I get like pinged on Teams like something small and simple that I can do is like, "Oh, I'm going to do that immediately
Yes.
because I know I can get it done. It's simple. I don't have to think about it and it's just like a nice little check mark
Hmm.
that I can get done and check marks feel great."
Instead of spinning my wheels for an hour on this hard thing, I can take care of something that will make me feel better about being smart for 5 minutes
Yeah.
and then spend the other 55 minutes in a better mood spinning my wheels on the
Yeah.
hard thing.
Just a quick little 5-minute mental health break while
Yeah,
still doing your job. The best of both worlds.
exactly. Ask me the dimensions of a tri-clamp process fitting. Great. Easy. Turn it around. Boom. Here's your answers. I have that bookmarked.
I don't
But
even know like 3 of the words you said in that sentence.
it's a hygienic pipe fitting. Don't worry about it.
Oh, of course, because
Obviously.
I knew all the words in that sentence too. So obviously I know what that means.
Yeah, tri-clamp is more like
All right,
Kleenex.
at
It's a
Maegashira
brand name.
14 on the east side, we have Chiyoshoma rising 4 ranks from Juryo after a 10-5 record. So I'm happy with Chiyoshoma's placement here. It went exactly as I thought it was going to go with typically the rule is place all the Makuuchi Rikishi with a winning record. And then place any Juryo Rikishi that are coming up, except for the case where we see a Juryo 1 East Rikishi with 10 or more wins, and you're comparing him with like the bottom Makuuchi Rikishi with like 8 wins. In that case, they jump over, and that's what happened here with Chiyoshoma jumping over Nishiki Fuji. And also, I was happy to see Shonan no Umi ahead of Chiyoshoma. Shonan no Umi, by the math, deserved to be behind Chiyoshoma, but I assumed coming from so far up the Banzuke at Maegashira 5, he might get a little bit of not joy bias, but just high Maegashira bias or
Yeah, sure.
anti-Juryo bias to go ahead of Chiyoshoma, and that also happened here. What I wasn't expecting was Maegashira 14 West, where we have Nishiki Fuji rising 3 ranks from Maegashira 17 after an 8-7 record. I am
Yikes.
making Nishiki Fuji a luck of the Banzuke candidate, which I will explain after we talk about Maegashira 15 East, Ono Katsu, who is dropping 1 rank from Maegashira 14 after a 7-8 record. So Onokatsu dropping 1 rank after a 7-8 record, that makes sense.
Sure.
The thing is, he deserved to be ranked ahead of Nishiki Fuji by 1 rank. And we had seen a lot in the past, right around the Maegashira 14-15 range, where a Rikshi had a 7-8 record, but they were the Rikshi that deserved to be ranked the highest. So they just kept them in their place. That's why Roga was Maegashira 15 West for
Yeah.
2 or 3 Basho in a row. But this time, the Banzuke committee felt that they needed to have some sort of demotion for Ono Katsu here and not keeping him in his same place. Maybe a bit of a reaction to keeping Nishiki Fuji and Hokuto Fuji at their same
Yeah.
ranks following a 6-9 record. Maybe just kind of correcting that a little bit by making sure Ono Katsu got a little bit of a demotion following his 7-8 record. That'll be interesting. I'll be very interested to see if like every 7-8 for like the next 2 or 3 Banzukes, even if they deserve to be ahead of other people, get
Mhm.
knocked down at least a half rank, just to kind of show like, okay, we messed up with the 6-9 stuff. We
Yeah.
heard you.
Our bad.
We're fixing it. We're fixing it.
We're trying to be better.
Yeah, it probably won't happen, but I think it would be very funny if it did.
Yeah, for sure.
And Nishiki Fuji being luck of the Banzuke, I'm making Onokatsu a snub of the Banzuke, the kind of the two sides of the same coin with those 2 nominations.
Yeah, Nishiki Fuji is on a bit of a tear here, luck wise.
Oh God, yeah.
That's 6-9 plus. Like, how many ranks did you say he got? 3 ranks up from an 8-7.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even without context, that's a luck of the Banzuke for sure. That's weird.
Yeah. I want to take a look at Nishiki Fuji real quick. I just want to see what his ranks have been this year. So he's been lucky this year. He started the year at Juryo 2, and since then he's been flirting with danger. He's been Maegashira 14, 12, 17, 17, and now 14. So he's been flirting this whole year with going back down to Juryo, and by all rights should have been in Juryo last Basho.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, he's a guy that's just barely hanging on. We'll see if he can keep hanging on at Maegashira 14. He's got a bit of a cushion. Probably needs to go 5-10 to go down from this point.
That's the rivalry I'm watching this Basho is Nishiki
Nishiki
Fuji versus Juryo.
Juryo.
Yep.
And on the west side of our Maegashira 15 rank, we have Toki Hayate, who is returning to the top division for the first time in 3 Basho. He is rising up, I believe, 4 ranks from Juryo 2 after a 9-6 record. And then at Maegashira 16, we have another Juryo 2 with a 9-6 record that is rising up to Juryo. And this time it is Shishi, and he will be making his Makuuchi debut. The big guy from Ukraine finally breaking through into the top division.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. A handful of our amateur wrestlers who went to Japan last year for Worlds got to meet him. There were a handful of pro wrestlers that made appearances at the Amateur World Championships just for fun. In particular, guys like Shishi that had fellow countrymen that were showing up there to wrestle for the World Championship. By all accounts, Shishi seems pretty neat. So I it's a low bar, I know, but he's a guy that I'm rooting for because of that. I think that's pretty cool.
And Jake, I believe if you were to take your headphones and listen very closely, you can probably hear Max screaming in delight from where we're sitting, 30 miles away from him.
Yeah, I think you're even further away than I am.
Yeah. And then joining Shishi at Maegashira 16 on the west side, it's the return of the record-setting Rikshi himself, Takeru Fuji, back in the top division after suffering his ankle injury on day 14 of the March Basho, which he won in historic fashion. He is rising 12 ranks from Juryo 11 to get to the Maegashira 16 West rank after a 13-2 record. I do have him as a luck of the Banzuke candidate. I will explain why after we talk about the next two Rikishi. But I also have another luck of the Banzuke candidate, as we have Maegashira 17 East Asa Koryu, who will be making his Makuuchi debut. He is rising 8 ranks from Juryo 8 after an 11-4 record. So both Takeru Fuji and Asa Koryu being over promoted out of
Yeah,
Juryo into the top division.
that's interesting.
And then rounding out the top division at Maegashira 17 West, just did barely enough to stay in the top division. You got Bushozan dropping 5 ranks from Maegashira 12 after a 4-11 record.
Woof.
So the reason I have both Asa Koryu and Takeru Fuji as luck of the Banzuke Rikishi is, I mean, both of them deserve to be ranked ahead of Bushozan and a couple other Rikishi like Kinbozan and Kita Nowaka. But the pattern that we had been seeing, even last Basho with Shirokuma, is these Rikishi coming from deep Juryo 8 and below, which both of these Rikishi were from, were always going behind other like Maegashira that deserve to be 1 or 2, if not more, ranks lower than them. They would still go behind
Yeah.
those guys. And so in this case here, where we have Takeru Fuji going ahead of Bushozan, Kinbozan, Kita Nowaka, who all deserve to be 2 ranks below him, that's kind of counter to what we've been seeing over the past year and a half. And the same absolutely with Asa Koryu, who only deserve to be 1 rank ahead of those guys.
That's nuts.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a breaking of the pattern that we've been seeing with these deep Juryo guys. So that's why I have them both as luck of the Banzuke candidates. In my prediction, I didn't have Asa Koryu in the top division at all. I did not think him only deserving to be 1 rank ahead of that group of 3 Maegashira Rikishi would be enough to get him in the top division. I assumed Kita Nowaka with a 6-9 record for Maegashira 16 was going to stay in the top division and only drop down to Maegashira 17. And I also had Takeru Fuji as my lowest ranked Rikishi on the Banzuke to kind of keep him below like Bushozan at least, who deserves to be 2 ranks below him. But as we've seen, that's been too much for these deep Juryo Rikishi to overcome in the recent years. So a little bit of a change here for how they treated those guys.
Yeah, it's like they strengthened the bias from being in the Joy and weakened the anti-bias from being in Juryo or something.
Yeah. All right. So we had what, 5 guys? Yeah, we had 5 guys coming up from Juryo: Chiyoshoma, Toki Hayate, Shishi, Takeru Fuji, and Asa Koryu. And so with that, we've got to say goodbye to 5 Maegashira Rikishi. We will say goodbye to 1 in the form of Takakeisho in his retirement. And then the other 4 that are being sent down to Juryo: Kagayaki, Kinbozan, Shirokuma, and Kita Nowaka. So this is going to be the first time Kinbozan is down in Juryo since he made his Makuuchi debut about 1.5 to 2 years ago. So he had I don't want to say good run because he's had really bad record this year, but
it's been good in the sense of like a random pro sumo wrestler.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like a prospect, because he did come in pretty hot as somebody that we were keeping an eye on, but he very quickly became like just a middling low Maegashira kind of guy for a while.
Yeah, so he debuted in Sandanme in 3 years ago, November of 2021, and then he was in the top division of March of 2023, so less than 2 years after his debut. He went 11-4 in his debut.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of then.
And then never sniffed that once since.
Yeah. And it's not like his career's over. I fully expect him to be back. I kind of peg him as a guy that's like a Kagayaki or somebody that's flipping between divisions for a little while. He's perfectly serviceable, but yeah, it is interesting that he'll be gone for the first time in what feels like a long time here.
Yeah, and he's had that neck tape So he's obviously been battling some sort of like
Yeah.
neck, upper back injury. That's probably been the reason for his poor performance recently. So how did I do? If you're watching on YouTube, you can see not great. There's too much color on that prediction, and that bears out with the Guess the Banzuke results. I got 24 bullseyes out of a possible 42. That's 57%. My previous best is 76%, so about 20% lower than the best one I've ever had. I
Yeah.
got an additional 4 Rikishi at the correct rank, but on the wrong side. So I had 28 Rikishi at the correct rank, which is 67%, which is 23% lower than my best of 90% Rikishi at the correct rank. First place this Basho had 37 at the correct rank. So I was 9
Yikes.
behind first place on this one. Yeah, just complete essing the bed for me this time. So this Basho, I ranked 96th out of 255 participants. That 255, pretty sure most all time. That number just keeps
Yeah.
going up and up and up.
Yeah, it's been roughly 200 for most of the time we've been doing this formally, right?
A little over 200. It's where it's been hovering the past few Basho, definitely. So I think 255 is a big step up.
I will say there's a lot more views on these prediction videos than there are submissions, which means that some of you are cheating off of Ryan's homework but not turning yours in. So, no, we put a link in the description? We should put a link in the description so more people can give this a try if they want to for
Absolutely.
next
That's
time.
a great idea. You should do that when you make this YouTube video.
Oh, yes, you're right. I guess I am telling me.
Yeah.
Let me write it down so I don't do what I did last time and just
Yeah.
not post it or something.
So yeah, I finished 96. That's a 9-6 equivalent. So still a winning record, still well within the top half of the predictions, but obviously much further below my standard that I typically have for myself. Coming off a Basho where just the previous Banzuke, I won the whole damn thing. So still number one in the overall rankings, but we are replacing a 5th place finish in the calculations with this 96th place finish.
Ugh.
So like I said, my 2023 was super hot. I think I had 3 or 4 top 10 finishes.
Yeah.
2024 only had 2 top 10 finishes, an 8th in July and a 1st in September. And then other than that, I had a 16th, a 51st, a 91st, and a 96th.
Yikes.
So, but hey, that's still good enough for me to be number one. So I'm not going to complain
Consistency
too
is
much
key.
about
Yep.
that. Yeah. And you know what? That just means I've got a lot of room to improve for 2025. So
Yep. If you kill it in the next one, that'll also drop off. The next one that will drop off your rankings is a 51st place finish.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get top 10, top 20 even. That should hold you steady. That'll be good.
Hopefully, yeah. So my worst guess on this prediction, I had a lot of bad guesses, but none of them were like cataclysmic. My worst one was Shodai, who I missed
I
by
suppose
2 numerical ranks, but like 3 spots on the Banzuke overall. So not too bad, like in terms of how far or how big of misses that I had. But also you got to mention Asakoryu, who I didn't have being promoted whatsoever. So that's also a pretty big miss on my part.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends how much weight you put on the Juryo interchange.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, he was either going to be there or he was going to be like right at the top of Juryo. So like it's not all that far off or anything, but
yeah, exactly. Just looking at some stats from this Banzuke overall, the biggest jumpers up the Banzuke are going to be 2 of our Juryo promotees, Takeru Fuji rising 12 ranks and Asakoryu rising 8 ranks. Looking at just the Makuuchi Rikishi, the biggest jumps we had were Nishikigi rising 7 ranks and Takayasu rising 6 ranks. Our biggest drops down the Banzuke, Shonan Umi dropping 8 ranks, and then the next biggest drop was Takanosho and Meisei dropping 5 ranks. So not a whole lot of big drops on this Banzuke.
And a couple of guys getting saved by the way the Banzuke was set up that they should have gone further.
Yep. We've got 5 Rikishi that are going to be at their career high rankings, those being Onosato, Oho, Chura Umi, Oshoma, and Roga. And 2 Rikishi making their Makuuchi debut in Shishi and Asakoryu. So now, Jake, we got to figure out who's the snub and who are the luck of the Banzuke winners. So snub of the Banzuke, we had Wakataka Kage for ending up behind Shodai, Oho, and Hida no Umi, who he deserved to be ranked ahead of all of them. We had
Hmm.
Shoda no Umi for falling behind Abi and Itami Fuji. He deserved to be ranked ahead of both of those. And we also had Onokatsu for being dropped in favor of Nishiki Fuji when he deserved to be ahead of Nishiki Fuji. Which one do you feel was slighted the most?
I am going to vote for Onokatsu because I think that the other two guys can be explained by Joy Bias returning in a stronger form. This one feels like a ref threw a flag on a play on a really soft call because he missed one on the previous call and wants to make up for it.
Yeah.
And the whole deal with Nishiki Fuji not getting demoted for that 6-9 last time feels like, is that why you did this one? Because there
Yeah.
really isn't any other reason that Onokatsu should be below Nishiki Fuji there.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like Wakataka Kage, Chura no Umi, we can just wave off, Joy bias, Sanyaku bias, it makes sense. But Onokatsu, yeah, it feels like a makeup call.
Yeah, makeup call. That's the term I was looking for.
Yep. And then our luck of the Bansuke candidates, we have Mitake Yumi for even though Joy Bias is involved, going ahead of 3 Rikshi he otherwise deserved to be ranked behind.
Hmm.
Takeru Fuji and Asakoryu, both of them for making it into the top division at all. And based on how we've seen past Deep Juryo Rikshi being treated. And then Nishiki Fuji for getting that jump ahead of Onokatsu, despite deserving to be ranked lower than him, and there being no bias at all involved in their equation.
Yeah, I think I kind of like Asakoryu here, mainly because it is rare to it is pretty rare for you to miss a guy's entire promotion here. Well, I mean, I suppose it did happen last time because they did the wonky crap with Nishiki
Yeah.
Fuji.
Yeah, so I guess
Mitake
I've done it
Yumi,
two in a row.
I suppose you're right. Maybe it's not rare at all.
Yeah.
But my other one is Mitake Yumi for being under demoted even more so than you already under demoted him on your
Yeah.
preview. But yeah, I think Asakoryu in part because I think it's going to be really fun to see a new face. And he's a
People
guy
are
that
gonna love Asakoryu.
yeah
He's like in the Enho Ishiura vein. Like and Midori Fuji. He's a small
yeah
guy, and I bring up Ishiura because he's a little built.
he's jacked yeah.
Yeah,
But he's I would say he's less in the Enho vein and more in Ishiura and Midori Fuji because his sumo is it's not 100% based on tricky weirdness. Some of that for sure because he's beating up guys that are bigger than him, but there's a lot of straightforward, powerful sumo to him. I'm very excited to see him, and that's going to bias me towards our Luck of the Bansuke award.
I was leaning that way anyway. So you're not tipping the scales in his favor that I wasn't already tipping.
Fair
Um,
enough.
yeah. And Asakoryu, same stable as Asanoyama. That's where the Asa is coming from. I believe also same stable as Asashoryu.
It means yes, I know that for sure. But that means morning
Oh, okay. Never knew that.
without the U, like the beginning of the day, not
Okay.
like being sad.
Thank you for clarifying
clarification.
that.
Yeah. That joke would have worked better in writing.
Yeah. And that's going to wrap up our Kyushu Banzuke discussion. Coming up, we've got the Basho starting on November 10th, just a couple of weeks away now. Before that, you can look forward to our preview. We should, Jake, the newsletter. I know I owe you an article for that, but newsletter should be out before the Basho.
Certainly before the Basho. Probably not within the month of October. We'll see if even this episode gets out during the month of October.
Yeah. And maybe, probably not, but maybe popularity poll results.
Ooh,
They are in the works.
in the works.
Yes. So that's all we got. We will be talking to you more in depth on the Kyushu Basho within about a week. So until next time, throw your salt high, keep moving forward.